Hi, I'm too strong in it. Chiraka. Thank you for selecting this narration of chapter 11, the final chapter from the book Astral World by Swami Panchadasi. The immediately preceding chapter and the immediately preceding video in this series was chapter 10, the Astral Light. This again is chapter 11, Astral Entities. Without intending to go deeply into this subject, for the same is reserved for the sole teaching of the advanced pupil and must not be carelessly spread before others, I think it well to call your attention, to the fact that on certain planes of the astral, there exist certain entities or living beings which never were human and never will be human, for they belong to an entirely different order of nature. These strange entities are ordinarily invisible to human beings, but under certain conditions, they may be sensed by the astral vision. Strictly speaking, these strange beings do not dwell upon the astral at all. That is, not in the sense of the astral as a part of space or a place. We call them astral entities simply because they become visible for the first time to man when he is able to vision on the astral or by means of the astral senses, and for no other reason. So far as place or space is concerned, these entities or beings dwell upon the earth, just as do human beings. They vibrate differently from us, that's all. They are also usually of but microscopic size and would be invisible to the human eye even if they vibrated on the same plane as do we. The astral vision not only senses their vibrations under certain conditions, but also under certain other conditions, it magnifies their forms into perceptible size. Some of these astral entities are known as nature spirits and inhabit streams, rocks, mountains, forests, and so forth. Their occasional appearance to persons of psychic temperament, or in whom a degree of astral vision has been awakened, have given rise to the numerous tales and legends in the folklore of all nations regarding a strange order of beings, to which various names have been given, as for instance fairies, pixies, elves, brownies, fairies, jinns, jinn, trolls, satyrs, fauns, kobolds, imps, goblins, little folk, tiny people, etc., etc., and similar names found in the mythologies and legends of all people. The old occultists called the earth entities of this class by the name of gnomes, and air entities as sylphs, and waters known as undines, and the fire or ether beings as salamanders. This class of astral entities, as a rule, avoid the presence of man and fly from places in which he dwells. For instance, they avoid large cities, as men avoid a cemetery. They prefer the solitudes of nature and resent the onward march of man, which drives them further and further into new regions. They do not object to the physical presence of man so much as they do his mental vibrations, which are plainly felt by them and which are very distasteful to them. A certain class of them are what may be called good fellows, and these, once in a while, seem to find pleasure in helping and aiding human beings to whom they have formed an attachment. Many such cases are related in the folklore of the older countries, but modern life has driven these friendly helpers from the scene in most places. Another class, now also very uncommon, seems to find delight in playing elfish, childish pranks, particularly in the nature of practical jokes upon peasants, etc. At spiritualistic seances and similar places, these elfish pranks are sometimes in evidence. The ancient magicians and wonder workers were often assisted by creatures of this class. And even today in India, Persia, China, and other Oriental lands, such assistance is not unknown. And many of the wonderful feats of these magicians are attributable only to such aid. As a rule, as I have said, these creatures are not unfriendly to man, though they may play a prank with him occasionally under some circumstances. They seem particularly apt to play tricks upon neophytes, newbies in psychic research, who seek to penetrate the astral without proper instruction and without taking the proper precautions. To such a one, they may appear as hideous forms, monsters, etc., and thus drive him away from the plane in which their presence may become apparent to him. However, they usually pay no attention to the advanced occultist and either severely let him alone or else flee his presence, though cases are not unknown in the experience of the majority of advanced occultists when some of these little folk seem anxious and willing to be of aid to the earnest, conscientious inquirer who recognizes them as part of nature's great manifestation and not as an unnatural creature or a vile monstrosity. Artificial entities. Well, in addition to the non-human entities which are perceived by the astral vision or on the astral plane, including a number of varieties and classes other than those mentioned here by me, and to which I purposely have omitted reference for reasons which will be recognized as valid by all true occultists, there are to be found on the astral or on the earth plane by means of astral vision a great class of entities or semi-entities which occultists know as artificial entities. These artificial entities were not born in the natural manner, nor created by the ordinary creative forces of nature. They are the creations of the minds of men. And women. The minds of human beings, incarnate. They are the creations of the minds of men and are really a highly concentrated class of thought forms. They are not entities, in the strict sense of the term, having no life or vitality except that which they borrow from or have been given by their creators. The student of occultism who has grasped the principle of the creation of thought forms will readily grasp the nature, power, and limitations of this class of dwellers in the astral. The majority of these artificial entities, or thought forms, are created unconsciously by persons who manifest strong desire force accompanied by definite mental pictures of that which they desire. But many have learned the art of creating them consciously in an elementary form of magic, white or black. Much of the effect of thought force or mind power is due to the creation of these thought forms strong wishes for good, as well as strong curses for evil, tended to manifest form and a semblance of vitality in the shape of these artificial entities. These entities, however, are under the law of thought attraction. Thought attraction. And go only where they are attracted. Moreover, they may be neutralized or even destroyed by positive thought properly directed in the way known to all advanced occultists along these lines. Another, and quite a large class, of these artificial astral entities consist of thought forms of supernatural beings sent out by the strong mental pictures, often repeated, of the persons creating them, the creator usually being unconscious of the result. For instance, a strongly religious mother who prays for the protective influence of the angels around and about her children, and whose strong religious imagination pictures these heavenly visitors as present by the side of her children, frequently actually creates thought forms of such angel guardians around her children, who are given a degree of life and mind vibrations from the soul of the mother. In this way, such guardian angels, so created, serve to protect the children and warn them from evil and against temptation. Many a pious mother has accomplished more than she realized by her prayers and her earnest desires. The early fathers of the churches, Occidental and Oriental, were aware of this fact and consequently bade their followers to use this form of prayer and thought, though they did not explain the true underlying reason. Even after the mother has passed on to higher planes, her loving memory may serve to keep alive these thought form entities and thus serve to guard her loved ones. In a similar way, many family ghosts have been created and kept in being in the same way by the constantly repeated tale and belief in their reality on the part of generation after generation. In this class belong the celebrated historic ghosts who warn royal or noble families of approaching death or sorrow. The familiar family ghosts walking the walls of old castles on certain anniversaries are usually found to belong to this class, although not always so. Many haunted houses are explained in this way. Also, the ghost may be laid by anyone familiar with the laws of thought forms. Laid to rest, I believe that's what that means. It must be remembered that these artificial entities are a purely human creation and obtain all their apparent and mind from the action of the thought force of their creators. Repeated thought and repeated belief will serve to keep alive and to strengthen these entities. Otherwise, they will disappear in time. Many supernatural visitors, saints, semi-divine beings, etc., of all religions have been formed in this way. Many. And in many cases are kept in being by the faith of the devotees of the church, chapel, or shrine. In many temples in Oriental countries, there have been created and kept alive for many centuries the thought form entities of the minor gods and saints, endowed in thought with great power of response to prayer, offering, and ceremonies. Those accepting the belief in these powers are brought into harmony with its vibrations and are affected thereby for good or evil. power of the devils of savage races, some of whom practically are devil worshippers, arise in the same way. Even in the early history of the Western religions, we find many references to the appearance of the devil and of his evil work, witchcraft, diabolical presences, etc., all of which were created thought form entities of this kind. Many of the effects of sorcery, black magic, etc., were produced in this way. The element of belief, of course, adding greatly to the effect. The voodoo practices of Africa, and later of Martinique, and the kahuna practices of Hawaii are based on these same principles. The effect of charms, etc., depend on the same laws, including the effect of faith. Even certain forms of spirits, so-called, of certain forms of spiritualistic seances arise from this principle and have never been human beings at all. An understanding of this principle will aid in the interpretation of many puzzling phases of psychic phenomena. Spirit return. Nothing that I have said must be taken as denying the reality and validity of what the Western world knows as spirit return. On the other hand, I am familiar with very many instances of the real return to earth life of disembodied souls. But at the same time, I, as well as all other advanced occultists, are equally aware of the many chances of mistake in this class of psychic phenomena. Shades, and even astral shells, too often are mistaken for departed loved ones. Again, many apparently real spirit forms are nothing more or less than semi-vitalized thought form artificial entities such as I have just described. And again, many mediums are really clairvoyant, really are, and are able to unconsciously draw to some extent upon the astral records for their information regarding the past, instead of receiving the communication from a disembodied soul, in all honesty and good faith. In many cases, occultism does not deny the phenomena of modern Western spiritualism. It merely seeks to explain its true nature and to verify some of it, while pointing out the real nature of others. It should be welcomed as an ally by all true spiritualists. Astral vision. It must not be supposed that the astral vision dawns suddenly upon anyone in full force. Rather, it is a matter of slow, gradual development in the majority of cases. Many persons possess it to a faint degree and fail to develop it further for want of proper instruction. Many persons have occasional flashes of it and are entirely without it at other times. Many feel the astral vibrations rather than seeing with the astral vision. Others gain a degree of astral vision by means of crystal gazing, etc. That which is frequently referred to as psychic sight or psychic sensing is a form of astral visioning or sensing. Psychism is bound up with astral phenomena in all cases. In this little manual here, I have sought to give you in a few lines the great underlying facts of the astral plane. I have crowded very much into a very small space so that you will have to read and study my words very carefully in order to get the full meaning. In fact, this is not a book to be read on and then laid aside. Rather, it should be reread and restudied until all the essence is extracted. The glimpses of a number of the subplanes of the astral should give you a general clear idea of many other scenes on that great plane. Remember, these scenes are typical of those witnessed by any advanced occultist who is able to travel on those planes, as you yourself may verify when you are able to vision on these planes. They are underdrawn rather than overdrawn here. Some of the more startling and sensational scenes have been omitted here altogether, as I have no desire to attract or cater to those seeking a sensation. My work is for the earnest student alone. Use this manual as a key to unlock many mysteries, not as a book to while away an idle hour. No, do not have any idle hours. Do not try to kill time. Be an earnest, thoughtful occultist, ever unfolding and evolving as you progress along the path. Look forward, not backward. Look upward, not downward. Have faith, not fear, for within your soul is a spark of the divine flame which cannot be extinguished. The end. Go be well.